Hi. Sometimes we choose to ignore toxic behavior for whatever reason. We decide, yeah, we're not going to deal with it. However, when you have family and close friends whose daily brief would be what happened today and how this is impacting them, then you recognize the fact that toxicity in teams and in organizations are not just limited to what's happening in the organization or in the team. It actually spills over into the lives of others. So, whereas we could have had a friendly conversation about other issues, the dialogue in the home, the dialogue among friends is now a recasting of today's episode of how toxicity impacted my life. Hi, I'm Trevor E. S. Smith. I'm with the Success with People Academy, and I'll be your host in this live cast. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that we have been setting up a repository of these live casts, and they are in the Extended Disk Solutions YouTube channel. So it's the Extended Disk Solutions YouTube channel. You can go there and you can see these videos, among others. So let's move forward. Right, so our agenda, and as we have sought to do over time, is that we try to limit these live casts to around 30 minutes, give and take a few minutes here and there. So we want to look at the context. This is our agenda. We want to look at 3 signs, just so that we can keep within our limit. 3 signs of toxicity in your team, could also be in your family, in your organization. And what we will do also, as usual, is to look at solutions. We strive to produce solutions, suggest solutions in all our live casts. So we want to do that. And of course, we also invite you. We have a little section that we just ask you to think differently, to do some introspection. So that's the difference. So what is the context? And the context is to ask, is there toxicity in your environment? It doesn't have to be widespread. It could be just one individual. The team caught up using energy to put out fires and to fix things. And, oh, this one didn't mean that. And there's an apology here. Are those factors that you engage? And so if that's the case, maybe your team is at risk for the onset of a toxic environment. And honestly, I've been going through this. Well, we've done a lot of work with teams with respect to toxic environments. And they are a drain on productivity, and they are a problem at the personal level. People are frustrated, people are tense, people have all sorts of issues. They're totally distracted when they're engaged in a toxic environment. So hopefully, you're not exposed to any of these and you're just curious as to what it might be like in a toxic environment. So maybe you also are in a toxic environment, but somehow you're able to lift yourself above what's going on and you're not really impacted by it. More power to you if that's the case. Anyway, the bad news is that toxicity has a way of creeping in unnoticed. Yeah, yes. Even one team member can introduce toxicity into the team. So, whatever your scenario, you should be alert to the fact that toxicity and the development of toxic environments is a process, it's not an overnight thing. So the keys would be, and that's why we're talking here today, is to see how we can identify telltale signs of the potential onset of a toxic environment. So I'm going to proceed by sharing 3 behaviors, 3 prevalent signs of toxicity. So they're all communication challenges. I think that communication is at the core of a lot of toxicity. So I just had a conversation with a manager, and he was talking about it. He was saying, "Hey, you need to come and help us because I'm having a problem with my team." One example that he cited was that there was an individual who worked closely to another, and that individual would wait until her team member would leave her desk to go and place a note on that individual's desk. I identified with it immediately because I've had that in one of my high performing teams interventions. So the, the communication, the situation has got so bad that they cannot even communicate face to face. So they wait to leave notes for each other. So that to me is a clear indicator of a well entrenched toxicity. Well entrenched toxicity is in place there. So what's the practical application? In these live casts, we like to look at meaningful things. We like to look at things that can make a difference on how we deal with it. So this issue actually is quite challenging. I must tell you that, because it's not that it is obvious to the leadership team, for example. It is only apparent to team members in close proximity that over time somebody would say, "Hey, what's happening here? These two are not communicating." Yes. As an individual in that scenario, they might not feel that it's in their place to intervene. Who am I? Am I a counselor? Am I HR? So they might just actually ignore it. Or they might feel that they don't have the skills to deal with the issue. Sadly, it could also be that this is part of the course, that this is a regular occurrence. So why would I worry about this instance? So what are some potential solutions? My thinking is that this has to be addressed at a deeper level. It has to be addressed in the context of the culture of the organization, the culture of the team. The entire team then would need to have to go through a process where we work to change their mindsets, where they seek to embrace harmony and understand the value and the benefits of good team dynamics to themselves and to the organization. Yes, I put the image there of conflict management, but it's beyond conflict management. It also requires a deeper understanding of myself and how others perceive me and how I perceive others and how I can make things work better with others. So it's a whole reset, a cultural reset. It's not just a conflict management workshop. All right, talk more about that later. The second communication challenge is that, as you can see here, people speak different language behaviorally. Yes, we speak in English, both of us, but somehow what you're saying to me, I'm not understanding it the way you meant it. And so it's not landing well with me. That's part of social intelligence, where we are able to communicate with people in a way that they, quote unquote, hear us in the way that we want them to hear us. And again, it's a skill that needs to be developed. Without this competence, people just send information out, packages of information out from how they see life, how they want to communicate. And if it lands well, fine. If it doesn't land well, what can I do? That's a problem. And what happens then in that environment is that you feel trapped. You feel trapped. A colleague will come and speak to you or give you instructions, give you feedback in a way that absolutely turns you off. They might be well meaning, but the way they are going about it is not landing well with you. Many of us can identify with that. There's just some way that this individual rubs you the wrong way. And maybe it's deliberate, and usually it's not, because people are responsible, hopefully. But it's just that They don't have the skill. They don't understand what to do. And it just continues. And so after a while, you just shut down communication from that source. Challenging in an organization. And when it is coming from multi dimensions, it's even more difficult. So, this issue of failing to understand unique preferences is a challenge in organizations, and that is at the source, is a major source of toxicity in environments. So there's a second part to it because the difficulty we have with this failure to communicate, you know, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Remember the movie? Well, what can happen here is that even one individual can make a difference. That's the problem. Yeah. So we could have one misfit, one individual who is the source of major toxicity. And you're saying, okay, why not just ask them to spend their time elsewhere? It's not so easy in some environments where there are unions and where there are all sorts of protocols related to um, dismissing an individual. And sometimes they're right just on the point where you could say, okay, here is a point, here is a behavior, here is some action that warrants dismissal. And so they are there. And while you can see it and you can see the negative impact of their behavior, it's challenging. You don't want to risk having to go to court or have to go through all sorts of processes with the labor department. And so the person continues to be a pain in the neck of everybody. Tough. So what can we do about that? Problem we have here is that while people think about, oh, you can't just ask me to do these fancy database things or do this stuff with my spreadsheet. I need training. The feeling is that interacting with others and communicating with others is child's play. I've been doing it from I'm a child. However, for me, this is a Sisyphus situation here where you roll the rock up to the top of the mountain and then, of course, it rolls back down and it continues to do that. That to me is second to having to relate to people. Interpersonal relations is the most challenge for me, the most challenging endeavor that humans are required, forced even to pursue. Yeah, very, very difficult. It's a complex thing and it's not easy to do. So for me, there's no way around it. Teams either get formal training in communication related issues or you run the risk of inviting toxicity. Say it again. The team, the organization either gets formal training in how to relate to each other, how to communicate, how to give instructions, how to receive instructions, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. All of those things should be trained, should need coaching, formal coaching and training in those areas. Or you run the risk of inviting toxicity. Might be lucky now that this is not obvious on the surface, but it can happen at any time unless individuals are formally trained in interpersonal relations and communications. So the third one, and this one is a biggie. This one is a motherload. I'm the boss. And just in case you guys didn't know it, I am the boss. And I have to remind each one of you every day, every minute of the day, that I am the boss. Oh my gosh. Misguided leadership, misguided leaders are a major source of toxicity in organizations and in teams. And the problem here is that normally you would want the leadership to take action to address toxicity. But if I am the source of the toxicity, who is going to take action? Hard to deal with. This one is hard to deal with unless the persons who are subjected to it decide to take action and to go above the head of the Leader must be somebody. Oh, you're saying, okay, what if it's a family owned business and he's the ultimate authority? Who do you go to? Well, sometimes I tell people in the workshop that maybe that's a time when you need to fix up your resume because you're going to have a hard time. But no, you might need to. Maybe there's a director or somebody. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Or maybe you need to just come together as a group and have a constructive conversation as to where do we want to go? Do you want to achieve success? Do you want to increase productivity? So here are some things that we want you to consider. So that's something that has to be done. But this is a problem, big problem. So some of the effects would be that you find team members are disrespected. The person speaks to you in a manner that really um, is almost insulting in a sense. It's denigrating. Um, your work and your contribution are not recognized or appreciated. As a matter of fact, if you do excellent work, you might find that the individual takes credit for your work. Um, the individual doesn't seek advice and normally also refuses to listen to sound counsel. Problem, big problem. So some of the things that you would have here, as I said, people sharpen their resume and move, high staff turnover. Also, when you go to the lunchroom, it's just a downloading of some bitterness, some frustration. And so this is not a nice place to be. There are no happy campers here, as I said here. So that's a big problem. All right. So we promised that we would only deal with three, but there are other signs that can be picked up if you are alert. For example, frequent absences. If people, are absent from work with great frequency, yeah, open confrontations. People really just go at each other. And then, of course, there is a big one, which is the willful sabotage. You see people really and truly undermining the organization deliberately. So, what are the solutions? What are the solutions? For me, again, saying for me, just giving advice. Yeah, cannot take it for what it's worth. Communication, in its different dimensions, it consistently turns up as a contributing factor to in toxic environments. You can see it, you can understand what is happening here. This person is communicating in a way that others are not understanding or not appreciating. So communication comes high on the list of things that link are linked to toxic environments. So here's a formula that has worked for me over many years. One, we help team members to understand themselves at a deeper level. We give them an extended behavioral DNA assessment, one that is directly linked to their role, and then we help them to understand and appreciate its contents. We help them to look at blind spots. We help them to look at how others perceive them. We help them to look at limiting factors and how best to achieve their goals from their preferred position. But we also guide them into understanding the need for flexibility. So I might have a particular preference, but if I am in a different environment, I need to be flexible and I need to adapt to the specific environment. That's fundamental. That's important. So if we have to go there, if we go to Greece and we only speak Swahili, some adjustment has to be made. We can't just keep shouting, loud and loud and loud and expecting to get different results. So that's the key for me, is an appreciation of the fact that people hear us differently, behaviorally, in the same way that if we speak in different languages, the communication is difficult. So it is with behaviors. And that includes tone, body language, all sorts of words, the words we use, all sorts of different factors cause a problem in the communication. And so one of the things that we want to look at is, who am I? How do I prefer to share information? And how do I prefer to receive information? And if we do that, and we appreciate the fact that others have similar needs, then that's a first step towards harmonious relationships. Then also now, second step is to guide team members as to how to function effectively and harmoniously in the team environments. So I might have a personal preference. I might have a behavioral style, which is what we talk about. And that style works well at home and among my friends. But how am I fitting in to the team environment? That's a big challenge. How do we fit into the existing environment? And that's not easy. And so one of the things that we do is that we create these team maps, putting all the team diagnostics together to create maps and to create information to show individuals how they fit into the team and how one behavioral preference impacts another and how to make a difference in the team in terms of how the team communicates. Powerful stuff. So then, in addition, we teach the fundamental principles, the grammar, the syntax of this universal language of behaviors. We call it discerning communication. So it's built on the DISC framework. And so we look at, basic behavioral styles and the Jungian concept as to how people want to cope with life, how they choose to cope with life, and to use that to create this language to say, if someone has a preference for being driven, dynamic, making things happen, I might have a challenge if every question that I'm asking, I'm saying, give me some time to think about it. I might have to sleep on it. That gives us a dynamic that doesn't work so well. So when the team understands these things, we might still have some differences of opinion, but it's not as personalized as when we are saying, oh my gosh, this person is too pushy. This person is always, never ever can make a decision. We move some of those away and we get to a place where we're saying, I understand. And that is why. And that then helps to remove great deal of the toxicity because we now understand that, I forgot that you're speaking French and here I am rambling off in English. Let us see if we can find a way, or maybe we have to get an interpreter, but something needs to happen rather than just raising the decibel level. That's the key to me to removing a lot of the toxicity. I'm going to ask you to have a conversation with me. Nothing, you don't have to make a commitment. Just let us talk about it a little bit. Look at what it is that you have. Let us see if we can prevent toxicity from coming into your team. And if you do have a toxic environment, let us see how we can sort it out. But let's go a little further. So I should say, send me an email. Let's have a little conversation. info@successwithpeople.org. So far, we have looked at avoidance as a sign of toxicity. And we have looked at its implication and solutions. So this is a situation where people are not communicating face-to-face anymore. They're actually sending little notes. I'm not talking about distance and people have to send emails. I'm talking about sitting next door to you and still not communicating with you directly. We have also looked at the challenges arising from a failure to understand that there are behavioral preferences. There are ways that we want to communicate and to receive incoming information. We also looked at solutions for that. And then the biggie, we pointed out the issues actually that arise from misguided leadership. I am the boss, I won't listen, and its negative impact. And of course, we looked at some solutions. different lenses. This is our different lenses. The second segment, we'll just ask you to pause for a while, please. If you could just pause for a while and just ask you some questions and to ask you to ruminate on these questions maybe for the next 3 months or so. So what if we decided to look at toxicity from a different angle, like what I'm sharing here? That just don't ignore it. Don't believe that there's no solution. Address it quickly. What if we decided to address each incident of antisocial behavior in a timely and understanding manner? In other words, when somebody does something that you would consider to be antisocial, deal with it in a friendly, warm manner, but don't just let it pass, because that's how we start to build toxicity. But the mindset must be to how do we improve the behavior as against a criticism, as against a chastisement, as against punishment. It's just, hey, Trevor, you see, when you did this, or the way that you spoke to me a while ago, I know you didn't mean anything, but sometimes I tend to hear people differently when they communicate with me like that. And I just wanted to alert you to it. That kind of thing. Yes. And also feel comfortable, create an environment in which I can go to Mary and say to Mary, Mary, you see, when you spoke to John about in this way, it doesn't land so well with John. So individuals in the team can actually take action to deal with potentially antisocial behaviors before they morph into toxicity. So what if we made ourselves open to feedback then? So that when I go to Mary, I don't have a problem. Or if Mary comes to me, I don't have a problem. I listen. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. That's the mindset. That's the environment that we want to create. And what if we truly recognize the power of good team dynamics and how we spend the majority of our hours? Remember, most of our waking hours are in the team, are with work. So if we have a healthy environment, it's going to make a huge difference to our lives. And what if we deeply appreciated the negative impact of toxicity mentally, as well as on our performance, as well as on productivity in the organization? So what if we made a commitment to seriously think on these things for the next 3 months? Yeah, that's the different lenses pieces. Take action. I'm suggesting that you talk to me about getting the behavioral assessment, going through the process. Let me go back quickly to where we are. Solution. Here we go. Let us help the teammates by doing the assessment and telling them what it means. Let us look at the team maps so that people can understand how to communicate with each other. And let us talk about this language of behaviors. That's it. So please send me an email at info@successwithpeople.org. I'll set it up. My team will organize it. And then we can also work now to have the companion workshops, or webinars, seminars, debriefing, training, coaching, etc. info@successwithpeople.org. Or just send me a direct message at my WhatsApp, 1-876-535-6677. And you can also set up a meeting using my HubSpot calendar, which is meetings.hubspot.com/Trevor-Smith4. So who are we? We are SHRM recertification providers, the Success with People Academy. Our focus has been on human capacity development. We just want people to be more productive. We want people to live better with each other. And that's what we have done. That's our why. And we use technology to support our process. So we have a powerful technology development unit that develops items like our Spike Performance Management. It's a multifaceted solution that deals with things like governance, compliance, competency framework built into it. It tracks performance, and it also has a learning and development built-in facilitation capacity, right? LMS. That's it. We also coach and certify leadership professionals, that we talked about misguided leadership. So we have solutions for that. And we, of course, spend a lot of our time developing engaged and high performing teams. Of course, the membership of the teams make a difference. And so we help in the organizations to avoid bad hires and to get the right fit for each role with our extended discount things solutions. Thank you for your time. Remember, send me an email, info@successwithpeople.org, and we can see how we can reduce toxicity in your environment.